Welcome to a world where the spotlight never fades, a place where global superstardom meets the heavy weight of responsibility, the world of BTS. We see them conquering charts, breaking records, and spreading messages of self-love to millions of armies across the globe. But have you ever stopped to think about what happens when the music stops? Behind the breathtaking choreography and the soulful lyrics lies a reality that few can truly comprehend. Being a member of the biggest group on the planet isn't just a job. It's a 24/7 commitment to an image, a brand, and a legacy that must be protected at all costs. While we see their triumphs, there is a silent list of sacrifices they make every single day, sacrifices that involve the very things that make us human, our hobbies. Imagine having a burning passion for something, a way to escape the stress of work, only to realize that your dream is considered a liability. For RM, Jin, Suga, J-Hope, Jimin, V, and Jungkook, some personal interests are more than just dangerous. They are strictly off-limits. Is it because of the physical risks that could end a world tour in a heartbeat? Or is it about the intense public scrutiny where one wrong move could spark a global scandal? What are these forbidden joys that these 7 legends have to keep locked away? How does it feel to have the world at your feet, but be told you can't step into certain shadows? We're about to embark on a deep, emotional journey into the hidden restrictions of the BANGTAN universe. These aren't just rules. They are the invisible walls of a golden cage. Are you ready to find out what the boys have had to give up to stay at the top of the mountain? Why would a simple pastime be seen as a threat to a multi-billion-dollar empire? Let's uncover the mystery and the heart-wrenching reality behind the scenes. This is the countdown you've been waiting for, the top 7 hobbies that are forbidden in BTS. Prepare your hearts, because the truth is more intense than any fiction you've ever heard. Number 7. Jungkook, the price of adrenaline. When we talk about the golden maknae, we are talking about a man who is literally good at everything he touches, a natural-born athlete with a competitive streak that burns brighter than a supernova. But did you know that the very thing that makes Jungkook feel most alive, his thirst for extreme, high-octane physical thrills, is exactly what Big Hit and the group's security protocols have to keep under a heavy lock and key? We've seen him bungee jumping with a smile and skydiving like it was a walk in the park during Bon Voyage, but the reality behind the scenes is much more restrictive. Jungkook has a deep, innate fascination with extreme sports, like professional motorcycling, downhill mountain biking, and even high-stakes mixed martial arts sparring. To us, it's just a cool hobby. But to a global empire, Jungkook's body is a temple that belongs to the fans and the shareholders. Imagine the sheer terror in the boardroom if Jungkook decided to spend his weekend racing superbikes on a professional track. One minor slip, one patch of gravel, or one momentary lapse in judgment wouldn't just mean a broken bone, it could mean the cancellation of a $100 million world tour, the displacement of thousands of staff members, and the heartbreak of millions of armies waiting in stadiums from London to Seoul. This isn't just a safety precaution, it's a structural necessity. Jungkook often talks about wanting to feel real and present, and for him, nothing provides that like the rush of adrenaline. He thrives on the edge of danger, where focus is absolute and the stakes are life or death. However, as BTS grew into a cultural phenomenon, the danger moved from the physical to the logistical. He is essentially forbidden from engaging in any hobby that carries a significant risk of sudden, debilitating injury. While other young men his age can go off-roading or join a local boxing tournament, Jungkook has to channel that explosive energy into the safe and controlled environment of a dance studio or a gym under the watchful eyes of trainers. There is a profound, silent sacrifice here, the sacrifice of a young man's wild spirit for the sake of a collective dream. You can see it in his eyes sometimes, that longing for a freedom that doesn't come with a safety harness. He's a bird with the strongest wings in the world, yet he's told the sky is too dangerous to fly in. Every time he chooses to stay safe, he's choosing his brothers and the fans over his own personal thrill. It's a heavy burden to carry, knowing that your personal joy could accidentally dismantle the dreams of your closest friends. Can you imagine the mental discipline it takes to suppress that urge for speed and impact? How does he manage to stay so grounded when his soul wants to soar at 200 miles per hour? It's a testament to his maturity, but also a glimpse into the invisible walls of the golden cage that we rarely talk about. As we move through this list, you'll realize that for Jungkook, being golden means having to stay polished and protected, even if it means leaving his most daring dreams on the shelf. The adrenaline is there, bubbling under the surface, but for the sake of the seven, it must remain contained. What other hidden desires are being held back by the weight of the crown? Let's keep going, because the restrictions only get more personal from here. Number 6. V. The silent lens of the wanderer, the ghost in the crowds. When we look into the soulful, deep eyes of Kim Taehyung, we see more than just a global fashion icon or a powerhouse vocalist with a voice like velvet. We see a poet who is constantly searching for the real in an increasingly artificial world. Taehyung, known to many by his artistic pseudonym, Vante, has a heart that beats for the raw, unedited beauty of everyday life. His forbidden hobby isn't something dangerous like skydiving or high-speed racing. It is something far more poignant and, in many ways, more impossible to achieve. The hobby of anonymous street photography and spontaneous social wandering. For a man who finds inspiration in the simple curve of a stranger's smile or the way the sunset hits a dusty park bench, his greatest desire is to simply disappear into a crowd, camera in hand, and document the world without being the center of it. However, in the high-stakes ecosystem of BTS, this hobby is a logistical nightmare and a security breach waiting to happen, making it one of the most strictly regulated aspects of his life. Taehyung's soul thrives on human connection, but his reality is defined by isolation. Imagine being a man who loves jazz, old films, and the quiet dignity of a lonely cafe. But knowing that you can never step foot into one without a team of 12 bodyguards and a pre-cleared security perimeter? To Taehyung, the act of wandering is a spiritual necessity. It is how he recharges his creative batteries. He wants to talk to an elderly painter in a Parisian alleyway or share a cup of tea with a street musician in New York without the interaction being recorded by 1,000 smartphone cameras. But for Big Hit and the security teams, Taehyung is a walking riot. If he were to slip out of a hotel room at 2 a.m. to capture the neon lights of a rain-slick street, he isn't just a photographer. He is a target for Sasaeng fans and a potential catalyst for a public safety crisis. This prohibition creates a profound emotional conflict that we often see flickering behind his calm exterior. He is a man who loves the common touch, yet he is barred from it by the very fame that gives him a platform. Every time he posts a beautiful, blurry, black and white photo on Instagram, it is a whisper of a life he can only taste in fleeting, controlled moments. There have been stories, whispers in the industry of Taehyung trying to disguise himself, wearing heavy coats and oversized glasses just to walk through a public park for 10 minutes of normalcy. But the Vante in him wants more than 10 minutes. He wants to be a ghost in the crowds, a silent observer of the human condition. The company views this as a liability because any unfiltered interaction could lead to a misunderstanding, a scandal, or a security lapse that could jeopardize his safety. Consequently, his hobby has been refined into a curated experience, where he is taken to private galleries or closed-off sets to take his photos. But can you truly capture the soul of the street when the street has been cleared for you? This is the invisible wall of his golden cage. Taehyung's forbidden hobby is the simple act of being human among humans. It is a reflection of his deep loneliness within the crowd, a man who is loved by millions, but can't share a simple, anonymous moment with a single stranger. The emotional toll of this restriction is visible in his music, in the melancholic undertones of songs like Inner Child or Blue and Gray. He is mourning the loss of the mundane. He is a photographer who is forbidden from entering his favorite studio, the real world. This hobby is forbidden, not because it's wrong, but because Taehyung's presence is too heavy for the world to handle casually. The price of being the world's most handsome man is that he can never truly see the world again without the world staring back at him. It's a haunting realization that the very curiosity that makes him such a brilliant artist is the one thing he is legally and professionally obligated to suppress. How does an artist survive when his greatest muse, the spontaneous reality of life, is kept behind a bulletproof glass wall? As we delve deeper into this list, we begin to see that for the members of BTS, the things they lose aren't just activities. They are pieces of their identity that they must sacrifice at the altar of global stardom. The camera is in his hand, but the world is out of reach, and that is a silence that screams louder than any stadium crowd. Number 5. RM, the intellectual exile, the prison of a genius. When we look at Kim Namjoon, the titan leader of BTS, we see a man who carries the weight of an entire industry on his broad shoulders. A linguistic genius who can sway the United Nations with a single speech, and a philosopher who finds beauty in the smallest bonsai tree or the most obscure piece of modern art. But have you ever dared to look past the RM persona and into the restless, searching soul of Kim Namjoon? The forbidden hobby we are talking about here isn't something that involves physical danger or scandalous behavior. It is something far more profound and perhaps more painful to lose. The hobby of unfiltered, anonymous intellectual wandering and true public solitude. For a man with an IQ of 148, whose mind is a constant whirlpool of existential questions and creative fire, the greatest luxury is not a private jet or a designer watch. It is the simple, forbidden act of disappearing into the fabric of everyday society to simply be a witness to life. To us, Namjooning looks like a peaceful afternoon in a park or a quiet visit to a museum. But the reality is that the Namjooning we see is a highly regulated, safely curated version of his true passion. The real hobby, the act of walking into a crowded bookstore in Ilsan, sitting in a public library for 6 hours straight, or taking a local bus to a random neighborhood just to watch people, is strictly off limits. Why? Because RM is no longer just a person, he is a national treasure and a global diplomatic asset. For Big Hit and the South Korean government, his safety and his public image are matters of national importance. Imagine the logistical nightmare if Namjoon decided to follow his heart's desire to spend a rainy Tuesday afternoon in a small, dusty secondhand bookshop without a security detail. Within 5 minutes, his location would be on social media. Within 10, the street would be impassable. Within 20, the very peace he seeks would be shattered by a global frenzy. This is the forbidden nature of his existence. He is a man who loves humanity but is barred from participating in it as an equal. He is forbidden from having a spontaneous life. Every museum visit he shares with us on Instagram is often the result of weeks of coordination, early morning openings, private viewings, or entire floors being cleared so that he can have a mere moment of normalcy. But is it truly normalcy when you are surrounded by black-suited bodyguards and NDAs? This restriction creates a unique kind of intellectual isolation. RM is a man who thrives on the common touch, yet he is forced to live in a high-tech bubble. He has often spoken about the struggle between RM, the superstar, and Kim Namjoon, the young man. And this forbidden hobby is the front line of that war. He wants to be a nobody so he can learn how to be a somebody for his lyrics, but the nobody role is the only one he can never play. Think about the emotional toll of having your very presence be a security risk. He can't go to a public park at noon because he might cause a riot. He can't sit by the Han River and drink a beer like any other 30-year-old because his brand must be protected from any possible misinterpretation. Even his love for cycling his famous no-license lifestyle is a hobby under constant surveillance. He isn't just riding a bike, he is being tracked by GPS, followed by a support vehicle at a distance, and limited to specific paths that have been deemed safe by his team. This is the heavy price of leadership. He has to sacrifice his own spontaneity to ensure the stability of the entire group. If RM were to get into a minor public altercation or even just be seen looking too human in a moment of frustration, the headlines would be global. Therefore, his hobby of wandering has been sanitized into a professional activity. There is a deep, reflective sadness in this, a man who encourages millions to speak yourself and find your name, yet he himself cannot walk down a street under his own name without it being a world-class event. He is a prisoner of his own success, locked inside a golden cage where the bars are made of fans' expectations and corporate responsibilities. Every time he looks out of a window at a crowded street, he is looking at a world he can study but never truly touch. He is the intellectual exile, a man who knows everything about the world through books and galleries but is forbidden from experiencing the raw, chaotic, unscripted reality of it. Can you feel the weight of that? To have a mind that wants to explore every corner of the earth, only to be told that your physical presence is too valuable to be left unguarded. This isn't just a rule, it's a lifestyle of constant self-censorship and calculated movements. RM's true hobby is existence without observation. And that is the one thing his contract, his fame, and his destiny will never allow him to have. He has traded his privacy for our inspiration, and his forbidden wanderlust is the ghost that haunts his most beautiful lyrics. As we look at the next members on this list, you'll see that the restrictions don't just stop at where they go, but extend to what they do with their very souls. The higher they climb, the smaller their world becomes. And for Kim Namjoon, the world has become a beautiful, silent gallery, where he is the most famous exhibit, forever watched and never truly alone. The silence he seeks is the one thing he can never buy. Number 4. Suga, the silent fire of the court, the ghost of the underground. When we think of Min Yoongi, we think of the calm, collected genius behind the production desk. The man whose tongue technology can melt microphones and whose lyrics carry the weight of a generation's collective anxiety and hope. But beneath that cool, almost feline exterior, there lies a burning, competitive fire that most people only catch glimpses of during a basketball match or a particularly intense rap verse. Yoongi's forbidden hobby isn't just one thing. It's a dual-edged sword that cuts through his very identity. The hobby of high stakes, full-contact competitive basketball, and unregulated underground rap battles. To understand why this is forbidden, we have to look back at the scars, both physical and emotional, that define the man we know as Suga. We all know the story of the delivery accident in 2012, the secret he kept for years while dancing through excruciating pain, and the eventual major shoulder surgery in 2020 that left him sidelined while the rest of the world watched dynamite explode. For Yoongi, basketball is more than a sport. It's where his stage name Suga, from shooting guard, originated. It is his first love, his sanctuary, and his ultimate release. However, in the high-pressure world of BTS, Yoongi's shoulder is no longer just his own, it is a critical component of a global machine. Imagine the tension in the Hybe legal department if Yoongi decided to join a local, high-intensity streetball tournament in Seoul. The risk of a single hard foul, a collision under the rim, or a simple awkward landing isn't just a personal injury. It's a breach of a multi-million-dollar insurance policy and a threat to the group's ability to perform. He is forbidden from playing at the level his heart desires. While we see him shooting hoops in the Soup or attending NBA games as a global ambassador, the reality is that he is restricted to non-contact, leisure-only play. He can never truly go all out on the court again. Every time he holds a basketball, there is a silent reminder of the limit he cannot cross. He has to play with a governor on his engine, never letting the competitive fire reach the point where his physical safety is compromised. This is a profound sacrifice for a man who hates to lose and who defines himself by his grit. But the forbidden nature of his life goes even deeper into his roots as a rapper. Before he was Suga, he was Gloss, an underground rapper in Daegu who lived for the raw, unpolished energy of a cipher. There is a part of Min Yoongi that deeply misses the anonymity of the underground scene, the ability to walk into a basement club, take the mic, and engage in a brutal, no-holds-barred rap battle where your status doesn't matter, only your flow. But for a member of BTS, this is a total impossibility. He is forbidden from participating in unregulated musical environments. Why? Because the Suga brand is too big to be seen in a space that hasn't been swept for security, recorded by official cameras, and vetted for public relations. If Yoongi were to show up at an underground battle and drop the kind of August D fire that comes from a place of raw frustration, the media would dissect every syllable for scandal or controversy. He is forbidden from being raw in a way that isn't curated for the masses. His August D persona is his only outlet, but even that is a controlled burn managed by a team of professionals. Imagine the frustration of a master chef who is only allowed to cook in a 5-star kitchen with a specific set of ingredients, never allowed to experiment with the wild, unpredictable flavors of the street. This restriction creates a psychological pressure cooker effect. Yoongi's hobby of rebellious expression has to be funneled through the official channels of albums and world tours. He can't just spit fire on a street corner anymore. The emotional toll of this is a recurring theme in his work, the feeling of being trapped by his own success, the longing for the past while being grateful for the present. He is a man who loves the grit, but is forced to live in the gloss. This prohibition isn't just about physical safety, it's about the purity of the idol. An idol cannot be seen in environments that are perceived as dirty, or dangerous, or unfiltered. Consequently, Yoongi has had to trade his most visceral outlets for a life of quiet reflection and studio isolation. Every time we see him sitting calmly at his piano, we are seeing the result of a man who has had to domesticate his own wild spirit for the sake of the seven. He has traded the roar of the underground and the sweat of the court for the silence of the production room. It is a noble sacrifice, but a heavy one. He is the silent fire, a volcano that is constantly being told not to erupt. How does he handle the heat? How does he reconcile the August D, who wants to tear the world down, with the Suga, who has to keep it all together? This is the invisible struggle of Min Yoongi. He is a king who can never return to the streets where he learned to fight, and a player who can never truly join the game he loves most. The more we look at these forbidden hobbies, the more we see that the price of global dominance is the loss of the very things that kept them grounded in the first place. Yoongi is safe, he is successful, and he is loved, but he is also a ghost in the places where he used to feel most alive. The court is empty, the underground mic is silent, and the fire is kept behind a digital wall. As we move closer to the top of this list, the sacrifices become even more personal, touching the very hearts of the members you thought you knew. Are you ready for the next level of this revelation? Because the restrictions don't just affect their bodies and their pasts, they affect their very souls. Number 3. Jimin, the fragile grace of a fallen angel, the dance with the devil. Step into the world of Park Jimin, a man whose grace on stage is so ethereal that it often feels like he's floating just a few inches above the floor. A performer who blends the elegance of contemporary dance with the raw, explosive power of pop music. We see the shimmering outfits, the flawless skin, and the smile that can melt the coldest hearts. But do we ever see the forbidden fire that burns within the soul of BTS's most dedicated perfectionist? The hobby we are discussing today is perhaps the most heartbreaking of all, because it is the very thing that made him a star. The hobby of extreme, unrestricted contemporary expression and the pursuit of physical limit breaking. To understand why this is forbidden, you have to understand that Jimin's body is a masterpiece that has been pushed to the brink of collapse more times than we can count. Born with the heart of a Busan modern dancer, Jimin's natural instinct is to use his body as a canvas for pain, joy, and every emotion in between. However, in the multi-billion-dollar world of BTS, that canvas is under a strictly enforced no-risk policy. Jimin is forbidden from engaging in the high-intensity, unregulated contemporary dance training that he grew up with, the kind of dance that involves bruising, floor work, dangerous aerial rotations, and the kind of total physical abandonment that defined his years at the Busan High School of Arts. Why? Because the Jimin we see on stage is an asset that must be protected from his own work ethic. We've heard the stories of him practicing until he collapsed, of him skipping meals to maintain a certain aesthetic, and of the chronic neck and back pain that has haunted him since the early days of Lie and Serendipity. For Hybe and the medical teams, Jimin's hobby of pushing his physical limits is a constant red alert. Imagine the fear in the eyes of his physical therapists when Jimin expresses a desire to return to a raw, unheated studio to practice 10-hour sessions of dangerous acrobatics just to feel the movement again. He is legally and contractually obligated to follow a moderated routine. He can no longer just dance until it hurts, because if it hurts, the world stops. This prohibition creates a deep, silent struggle within him. Jimin is a man who finds his identity through physical struggle, yet he is forced to be precious with himself. Every move he makes is choreographed not just for beauty, but for longevity. He is forbidden from the spontaneity of the scar. Furthermore, there is a second layer to his forbidden life, the hobby of anonymous social immersion and youthful rebellion. Jimin is known as the social butterfly of the group, a man who loves people and thrives on connection. But for Jimin, the simple act of going out with friends to a public place, getting a little bit too loud, or just living like a normal 30-year-old man is a forbidden dream. He is under a microscope that never blinks. While others his age can make mistakes, get into minor trouble, or simply be messy, Jimin must maintain a level of purity and poise that is almost superhuman. He is forbidden from having a private life that isn't curated for the camera. This emotional restriction is why we often see him clinging so tightly to his members. They are the only ones who know the unforbidden Jimin. He is a man who wants to be everyone's Jimin, but is forbidden from being just Park Jimin. The weight of being a global icon means he has had to sacrifice the messy parts of growing up. He can't join a local dance crew for a night of underground battles, nor can he walk into a crowded bar in Itaewon to just listen to music without it becoming a security crisis that could potentially damage the group's clean image. He is a prisoner of his own kindness and the world's expectations. This prohibition on messy humanity is what makes his solo work, like the album Face, so hauntingly beautiful it is his only way to rebel against the forbidden labels. He is a man who wants to scream but is trained to sing like an angel. He is a man who wants to fall but is forced to fly. The irony is that the more perfect we demand him to be, the more we forbid him from being the very person he was born to be. Can you feel the ache in his voice when he talks about loneliness despite being surrounded by millions? It's the ache of a man who is forbidden from touching the earth because the world wants him to stay in the stars. Every time he dances, he is fighting against the rules of his own life, trying to find a second of raw truth in a world of polished lies. This is the fragile grace of Park Jimin, a man who has everything but is forbidden from the one thing that costs nothing, the freedom to be imperfect. As we move closer to the top of this list, the restrictions move from the physical to the deeply psychological, touching on the members who have had to sacrifice their very peace of mind to keep the BTS flag flying high. Are you ready to see who is next? Because the higher the throne, the colder the wind, and the next member has had to give up a dream that most of us take for granted every single day. The silence is getting louder, and the truth is about to be revealed. Number 2. J-Hope, the sun that cannot set, the forbidden rhythm of the underground. When we think of Jungkook, we think of the literal manifestation of hope, the man whose smile can illuminate the darkest corners of the world, and whose movements on stage are so fluid, they seem to defy the very laws of physics. As the main dancer and dance leader of BTS, J-Hope is the backbone of their performance, the one who ensures that every finger snap and every footfall is perfectly synchronized across the 7 members. But behind that radiant Hobby persona lies a man whose soul was forged in the raw, sweat-slicked underground dance battles of Gwangju, a man who, before the world knew him as a superstar, was a legend known as Smile Hoya. His forbidden hobby is one that strikes at the very heart of his identity, the hobby of unregulated, high-stakes street dance battles and deep underground club culture. To understand why this is forbidden, we have to go back to the streets where Hoseok first found his rhythm. In the underground scene, dance isn't just art, it's a battle. It involves explosive power moves, unpredictable ciphers, where you push your body to the absolute limit of flexibility and endurance, and a level of physical aggression that is a world away from the polished, safe choreography of a K-pop stage. However, as J-Hope became the golden standard of performance for a global empire, his roots became his greatest liability. For Hybe and the team's insurance providers, J-Hope's ankles, knees, and spine are valued at hundreds of millions of dollars. He is strictly forbidden from entering the very spaces that gave him his start. Imagine the sheer panic that would ripple through the corporate offices if J-Hope decided to spend a Friday night in a basement club in Hongdae or Itaewon, engaging in a locking or popping battle where one wrong twist or one collision with another dancer could result in a career-ending injury. For J-Hope, dance is a conversation, but he is now forbidden from having that conversation in its most honest form. He can no longer just lose himself in the music without a predetermined plan. Every time we see him freestyling on camera, it is still within the safe zone of the BTS brand. The real, raw, dangerous freestyle, the kind that leaves you bruised and breathless on a concrete floor, is a ghost he had to leave behind in Gwangju. This prohibition isn't just about physical safety, it's about the sanitization of the rebel. Street dance is, by nature, a form of rebellion, but J-Hope has been transformed into a symbol of clean global success. He is forbidden from being messy or aggressive in a way that doesn't fit the Hope image. This creates a profound emotional dissonance. He is the dance captain, responsible for the perfection of others, yet he is denied the perfection of the struggle for himself. Think about the mental toll of being a master of a craft, but being told you can never practice the most visceral version of it again. He wants to feel the bass vibrating through a dirty floor, to smell the sweat of 100 other dancers, competing for nothing but respect. But instead, he is confined to sterilized practice rooms and massive stadiums where he is separated from the crowd by a 20-foot security gap and a literal ocean of light. This forbidden hobby is a sacrifice of his personal joy for the sake of the group's collective stability. If J-Hope goes down, the entire performance structure of BTS collapses. He carries that responsibility every single second. There is a deep, reflective sadness in the way he looks at younger street dancers, a mixture of pride and a haunting longing for a freedom he can never buy back. He has traded his Smile Hoya identity for the J-Hope mantle, and while he wears it with grace, the price is the loss of his most natural outlet. Furthermore, his forbidden life extends to the social aspect of the dance community. He can't just hang out with his old crew members in a public park to exchange moves because his presence would create a public safety crisis. He is a prisoner of his own influence. Every move he makes is scrutinized, slowed down, and analyzed by millions, meaning he can never make a mistake or try something ugly to see if it works. He has to be perfect 100% of the time. This lack of permission to fail is the ultimate restriction on an artist's soul. He is a sun that is never allowed to set, a light that must always be on, and a dancer who is forbidden from the very floor that raised him. Can you imagine the weight of that? To be the best in the world at something, but to be barred from the place where you feel most at home? J-Hope is the king of dance, but he is a king who can never return to his kingdom. He is forced to live in a high-tech palace where the floors are padded and the risks are zero, while his heart is still back in that Gwangju basement, waiting for a beat that he is no longer allowed to follow. This is the forbidden rhythm of young Hosok, a man who gives hope to the world but has to starve his own spirit of the raw energy it craves. As we reach the final point on this list, the number one forbidden hobby, we are moving into the most sensitive and high-stakes territory of all. It involves the member who has had to sacrifice the most basic human right for the sake of the army. Are you ready for the final revelation? Because the truth at the top of this list will change the way you see BTS forever. The climax is here, and the silence is about to be broken. Number 1. Jin. The stolen spotlight of the silver screen. The anchor's silent vow. We have reached the pinnacle of our journey, the final secret held by the man who stands as the eldest, the protector, and the worldwide handsome face of a generation, Kim Seokjin. When we look at Jin, we see a man who radiates confidence, someone who cracks dad jokes to ease the tension of his younger brothers, and a vocalist whose silver voice can pierce through the loudest stadium roar. But have you ever wondered about the ghost that haunts the halls of Jin's heart? The number one forbidden hobby for Kim Seokjin isn't a sport, a dangerous stunt, or a social taboo. It is the very dream that brought him into the industry in the first place. The hobby of professional, high-stakes screen acting and solo, unprotected wilderness survival. This is perhaps the most profound sacrifice in the entire history of BTS. Long before he was Jin of BTS, he was an acting student at the prestigious Jungkook University, a young man who spent his days studying scripts, analyzing characters, and preparing for a life on the silver screen. He didn't dream of being an idol, he dreamed of being an actor who could lose himself in 1,000 different lives. However, for over a decade, that passion has been strictly forbidden. For Big Hit and the global brand of BTS, Jin's potential acting career was a double-edged sword that they simply could not afford to unsheathe. Imagine the logistical nightmare. A K-drama or a film requires 3 to 6 months of absolute dedication, working 18-hour days on set. In the world of BTS, where the schedule is planned 3 years in advance, there is zero room for a member to disappear into a character. If Jin were to take a leading role, the group's OT7 unity, their greatest selling point, would be fractured. For years, Jin has had to watch his peers and juniors in the industry take the roles he was trained for, while he remained the anchor of BTS. This prohibition isn't just about time, it's about the image conflict. As the visual of the world's biggest group, Jin's face is a multi-billion-dollar asset. If he were to play a villain, a tragic victim, or a gritty, unpolished character in a film, it could potentially clash with the perfect, uplifting hero image that BTS must maintain for their global brand deals and diplomatic missions. He is forbidden from shedding the Jin persona. Every time he has been offered a script and the industry whispers that the offers have been endless, the answer has been a silent, "Not now." He has sacrificed his original identity to ensure the survival of the group's collective dream. But the forbidden nature of his life doesn't stop at the screen. Jin has a deep, innate love for the solitude of the wild, specifically solo high-altitude mountain trekking and deep-sea fishing without a security detail. For a man who is constantly surrounded by people, cameras, and noise, Jin's soul craves the absolute silence of a mountain peak or the middle of an ocean, where he is just Kim Seokjin against the elements. But for the eldest member of BTS, this is a forbidden luxury. He is a national treasure of South Korea. His safety is a matter of corporate and national security. He is forbidden from going anywhere truly remote alone. Imagine the terror of a security team if Jin decided to go on a solo 3-day hike in the rugged mountains of Gangwon-do without a GPS tracker or a team of bodyguards. One twisted ankle, one sudden storm, or one accidental encounter would not just be a personal tragedy, it would be a global catastrophe that could tank stock prices and devastate millions. Consequently, his love for the outdoors has been sanitized into content. When we see him fishing on In the Soup or Bon Voyage, he is surrounded by a crew of 50 people. The solitude he seeks is a choreographed version of reality. He can never truly be alone with nature because his life no longer belongs solely to him. This is the heavy price of being the eldest. He has to be the most responsible, the most stable, and the most protected, even if it means starving his own adventurous spirit. There is a deep, reflective melancholy in the way Jin speaks about retirement or peace. He is a man who has been on call for the world for more than 10 years, forbidden from pursuing his first love of acting, and forbidden from escaping into the wild silence he craves. He has traded his own narrative for the BTS story. Every time he smiles and makes us laugh, he is performing the greatest acting role of his life, the role of the man who has no regrets. But we see the truth in his solo songs, like Abyss and The Astronaut. He is a man who feels the weight of the water and the vastness of the space between who he is and who he was meant to be. This prohibition on his personal dreams is what makes his loyalty so inspiring. He didn't just give up a hobby, he gave up a destiny so that 6 other young men could find theirs. He is the silent foundation, the one who stays still so the others can fly. The forbidden acting and the forbidden solitude are the invisible scars of a leader who leads from the back. As we close this list, we realize that for the members of BTS, forbidden doesn't mean wrong. It means too precious to risk. They have climbed the highest mountain in the world, but they had to leave their favorite things at the base of it. For Kim Seokjin, the silver screen is still waiting, and the mountains are still calling. But for now, his greatest masterpiece is the brotherhood he helped build. This is the reality of the crown. It is beautiful, it is gold, but it is also a heavy, silent cage.